Hi, my name is Jacques Hopkins, and in this lesson, we are going to be talking all about improvisation on the piano. Now, if you're taking this lesson, I'm going to assume you have some basic understanding of the piano. I assume you know all the notes, and I assume you're somewhat familiar with chords. Let me just do a quick recap of my instructions on chords so that you're ready for this lesson. If you remember, the major chords have the simple formula for 3. And so any major chord has that formula. If we want to play a D major chord, we start at D. We go up 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 1, 2, 3. There's D major. If instead we wanted to play D minor, we would go 3, 4 for the formula. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. There's D minor. In the left hand, we just play 2 Ds. And if we just can't make that reach, our hands are too small, or it's just not comfortable, we'll just play 1. So that's where we are. And if you have that knowledge, you're ready to start tackling improvisation. So the way I want you to think about improvisation, what is improvisation? It's a free flow of playing. It's almost like making things up as you go, but it's within a framework. It's within guidelines. And I'm going to share with you what those guidelines are today in this lesson. You can think of it like guardrails. You know, you're driving down the road and there's maybe a big cliff. There's these guardrails so you don't fall off, right? Well, I want you to picture a racetrack, a really wide racetrack, and you're driving a car and you're the only one there. And on either side, you've got guardrails. And it's not just one lane, it's super wide, okay? So you're driving down the track. You have the freedom to go left. You have the freedom to go right. You have the freedom to go faster. You have the freedom to go slower. But that's all within the confines of these guardrails, okay? So these guardrails are the framework and the rules of what I'm going to be showing you today. And then within that, you're free to do whatever you want to do. And I'm going to show you those things that you can do on the piano within the guardrails, okay? So to use this as the example we're going to use is something called the 4-chord song. And what the 4-chord song is it's just 4 chords that are super, super popular in modern pop songs. And those chords we're going to be using are C major, G major, A minor, and F major, okay? So those 4 chords are actually those guardrails. Those are the things that you cannot get past. You have to stick with those 4 chords. But in this video, I'm going to show you how you can improvise within the confines of those 4 chords. And as you're playing those 4 chords, you can kind of think of it like this. Think about you having a tool bag. It's your improvisation tool bag. And today I'm going to show you 5 different tools that you can pull out of that tool bag at any given time and apply it to the 4-chord song, okay? So as we go through this, the entire lesson is going to be focused on the 4-chord song. I'm going to show you one of these tools at a time, and then at the end, I'll show you how you can just, pick out a tool, play it, and then put it back, and we'll pick out the next tool, and we'll just put it all together and be able to use all 5 tools at any given time. So with that, let's go ahead and start with the very first tool, and that is called basic chord patterns. So what that looks like is this. Let's say we're on our C major chord. If we're playing the full left hand with two C's, then we've got 5 total notes, okay? So at this point we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 total notes. So what this is a pattern including those 5 notes. Let me give you a couple of examples. You could play that chord, instead of just playing a basic all 5 notes, you could do this. That's one pattern. Or you could do this. That's another pattern. Or you could do this. The patterns that you can make are almost limitless. So I've given you 3 here. I want you to maybe come up with some of your own patterns that you could make up using just these 5 notes. And once you do that, you can use those patterns and run through the 4-chord song like this. Let's end on the F major there. So you'll notice that I didn't stick with the same pattern for every chord. I switched it up, and that's exactly what I want you to do. If you're new to this, if you're new to improvisation and you're new to these basic chord patterns, you may want to start out and do the same pattern several times in a row and then try a new pattern before you try to go from one pattern on one chord to the next pattern on another chord. But that is the essence of that first tool, basic chord patterns. Okay, so with our second tool, we're going to add in a couple of additional notes to our chord. Okay, additional notes. So let's start with our C major. And one of these notes we're going to add into the left hand, and one of these notes we're going to add into the right hand. So let's focus in on the left hand first. And the note that we're going to add in is actually the rightmost note that we would be playing in the right hand. So C major, the top note here, the one furthest to the right, is a G. So that's the note that we can play in our left hand right here. And I recommend you play it with your pointer finger. And once you can play that, once you're comfortable playing that, we can improvise and add that note to our basic chord patterns, basically. And now the note you can add in the right hand is the same as the root position note. So in C major, we can add an additional C note here, and that just gives us more versatility, more cool sound to add in here. So this is the note right here for a C major that we're adding in. So now we've got this at our disposal and this at our disposal. This basic chord pattern is the first improvisation tool that I'm giving you, and additional notes is the second improvisation tool that I'm giving you of the 5. So here's our additional notes, and you can throw those in as you're going through the 4-chord song. You can hear that it just gives it a whole new dynamic, being able to add in those 2 additional notes to your playing. All right, so the third tool is called multiple octaves. Multiple octaves. So when we're playing right here, we are in a certain octave of the piano, and multiple octaves refers to actually moving to an entirely different octave on the piano. We're playing the exact same notes we were before, but we're just moving to either a lower pitch or a higher pitch. And we can do this in one of 2 ways. Okay, so the first way that you can do it is you can just play your 4-chord song down at your regular octave, which is somewhere in the middle of the keyboard. And then as soon as you get through playing it one time, shift completely up to the next octave and do it again. What I like to do is maybe toward the end of a song, if I've played most of the song within kind of the middle of the piano, maybe I'll play one of the last verses just up an entire octave and then come right back down for the very, very end. The other way you can use multiple octaves is within the same chord before you move on to the next chord. So for example, if I'm playing my C major, before I move to G major, I can go ahead and move my hand and play a higher octave of C major before I come back down to G. Here's what that can look like. Missed a couple notes there, please forgive me, but hopefully you see what I'm saying with multiple octaves. We can take an entire verse and kind of move the whole thing up, or we can just go with part of an individual chord and before we move on to the next chord, play it in a different octave. So that's how we do multiple octaves. That's our third tool, improvisation tool of 5. So we have 2 left. The next improvisation tool is called inversions. This is a fun one. Okay, so what an inversion is you're literally inverting the chord. Okay, so let me show you this. If I were to play these notes right here, I have a G, I have a C, and I have an E. Let me ask you something. What chord is that? What chord is that? Well, it's actually a C major chord. It's a C major chord, because if I just asked you C, E, G, right, all I'm doing is taking that G and I'm moving it down here. So it's the same chord as a C major, it's just inverted, okay? So every chord has two inversions associated with it. We can take the root note and put it on the top, and then we can do that again, right? So this is the root position chord, this is the first inversion, this is the second inversion, okay? And once you get good at inversions, I know it may seem intimidating when you're first learning about inversions, and why would I ever want to use that? It seems kind of difficult once I've learned the normal chords. Why would I want to go and mess that up and play a different version of the chords? Well, there's two reasons. One is, once you know how to do the inversions, it can actually make your playing easier, and I'll show you why in a second, and also it can make it sound better, okay? So when would you ever use inversions? Well, let's jump back to our trusty 4-chord song. Let's say we're starting with C major, and we need to move to G major. Well, what you do is you want to move your hand, your right hand specifically, as little as possible, all right? So in this case, I'm playing a C major chord. If I want to move to G, right, rather than shifting my hand all the way up here, right, I can just shift it to a inverted G major much easier, and it actually does sound better. And then once I'm at G major, instead of going all the way up here, I'm just going to shift it again, just one note each to my A minor, and then once we are at our A minor, watch how cool this is. Instead of going, well, we are going to go back to the F major root position because of how easy it is to get there. Look how similar an A minor is to an F major in terms of the notes. I only have to move my thumb from here to get an F major. You saw that? A minor, F major. How cool is that? And then we'll go back down to our C major. So that's inversions. They can be really, really, really cool. Last and final improvisation tool is called Arpeggios. And you may have heard of Arpeggios before, and that's when we go and we play one note at a time in order. So it's like kind of like this. Right? And you don't have to necessarily add in the top note. If I just played that without the top note, let me see if this sounds familiar to you. Now those aren't the exact chords, but the pattern with arpeggios, that's like Adele's Someone Like You. If you can kind of hear that pattern with the arpeggios, very popular in that song, and it's popular in a lot of songs. So arpeggios can be played a lot of ways. I just showed you a couple of examples, but it's a great improvisation tool and gets you away from playing just a basic chord because you can break up the chord into those individual notes. So those are the 5 improvisation tools. A quick recap: we have our basic chord patterns, we have our additional notes, we have multiple octaves, we have inversions, and we have arpeggios. So what I'd like for you to do is I'd like for you to practice each one of those. Use the 4-chord song, or maybe use some of your other favorite songs, and go through those improvisation tools one at a time. And then when you're comfortable with each one on its own, then we can start playing a song and just pulling one out and then pulling the next one out, pulling the next one out. And once you seamlessly switch from one improvisation tool to another, that's when you know how to improvise on the piano. And one of the great things about being able to improvise on the piano is you could take something as simple as the 4-chord song and you could literally play on those 4 chords for hours. And somebody listening to you would be fascinated by that and enjoy hearing it, and it wouldn't be the same thing over and over. You're just improvising. So if you've ever wanted to just be able to sit down at a piano and play for hours, then improvisation is the key to that. So let me show you in closing what it can sound like when you're just pulling out those tools on just the 4-chord song. it some practice. One day, I'm sure that you can be even better than what I just did. And I'm so glad that you've stuck around with me for this improvisation lesson. I just absolutely love improvisation. And when you take the power of chords and you take the power of improvisation and put those together, the possibilities are just endless. So please go ahead and do your practice. And I look forward to hearing what this is going to sound like for you once you put it into place. And if you want to continue down this path and you want me to continue teaching you how to play the piano and take this kind of all the way and let me show you everything that I know about how to play the piano, then I'd love for you to check out some of my additional resources on my website. I've got a free workbook waiting for you that's actually the first 5 days of my program, and that's waiting for you at pianoin21days.com. So you can just head there now or click the link in the description below this video.